Hey guys, Chris Dunn here, aka the Boogie Man. On this episode, we're going to answer a bunch of questions because we've been getting messages and texts and all kinds of questions about, like, where's the Boogie Man this year? Are we going to race? Not going to race? When are we going to come back and race? So we're going to walk you through right quick what happened from November of last year to this point, explaining where the Boogie Man's at, why are we not racing, and we're going to answer all these questions. Also, we're going to try to drop 2 videos a week. 1 video a week is going to be our projects in the shop, like the Boogie Hauler, Mama Boogie, and any other customer's project in the shop. The second video is going to be more like what's going on with the Boogie Man as far as the racing stuff, and going to be like equipment, I don't know if the right word is tutorials, like welding machines and tools and this and that. So stay tuned. 2 episodes a week. You're going to love it. I hope it's entertaining. Mainly, I hope you can learn something. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to November, Shady Side race last year, SEG. We had put their new power plant in. We'd had it in for a couple of weeks. The car didn't like the power. Well, let's back up here. Before I put in the new power plant, we was having a tire shake issue that started to come in with the old engine in the car. And I just could not, I'll be honest, I could not put my finger on what was causing the tire shake. We changed tires. We did a lot of things, and none of them really cured the problem. So what we done is we had, after London, we had tore up a head. We didn't really drop a valve. We had messed up a valve guide. But the time it took to get them repaired was a couple of months. So it just drug out. Well, we'd already been building a new engine. All right, had been working on a new engine design for about a year and a half, which is this engine right here. So basically we just, stepped off from racing to get all the parts to put the new power plant in. Well, that's this engine. Now over here is the backup engine, which was the original engine we've been running from 2017, and it's no slouch either. All right, but this is the engine that makes the most horsepower per cubic inch. I ain't gonna say I think we hold a record, but we're gonna double check it, and we're gonna start posting numbers when this is back together, because this is just crazy how much horsepower per cubic inch just makes being a 23-degree engine, a true 23-degree valve angle with, no angle cutting, no 21-degree head. It is, you measure the valve, it's 23 degrees. So, we'll be posting that, but it makes torque like crazy. The torque numbers is way on, they're in the 600s with the big blocks. So, but it ain't quite as much as the big blocks. Big blocks are hard to run with. What had happened, I'm going to make this real quick because this could be a 30-minute video, and we're not going to do that. Basically, the tire shake issues, we didn't have hardly no time to test before the Shady Side race. We went a couple of times on Sunday to try to test and figure out what's going on. And, I'm throwing everything at it. Clutch settings, this, shot, that, this, that. Did I make a bad gear change? Did I screw up ratios in transmission? And the biggest thing with us is we're behind the curve. These guys, all the guys we was racing against last year, and if we come race this year some, they've got years of testing ahead of us. So I'm extremely happy that we're right up as close as we're getting to them in the time that we're getting, because we're not putting in, we ain't got nowhere near the hours and days and money invested in testing that these other guys have got. They're years ahead of us. So, we're trying to warp speed up to them, and they've got years ahead of us. So with that being said, I'm really happy where we're at. But the tires were shaking so bad that it was hurting me in the car. And I'd always heard a tire shake, and I didn't think that really could happen in a gasser because, we're not making, 3,000 horsepower. But it did. I mean, it was so bad it hurt my kidneys. They'd have to help me get out of the car. It was that bad. You can ask the guys around me. It was just that bad. Well, what had happened at Shady Side is we literally broke the crankshaft. We didn't break it to the point that it went catastrophic and just tore the engine up. We broke it enough that it took out the number 4 main, and I heard a knock come in and going back to the pits. So we stopped right there. So when we tear the engine down, we found that number 4 main had spun, and it had cut off the oil to the number 6 rod, which is this this piston right here, not this rod, but this piston and all. So it had cut the oil off to it. Number 5 was fine, which was weird to me. They share the same journal. But what had happened is I sent the crank off to Sparta Crank to be repaired. And they found where it was broke. It wasn't in 2 pieces, but it was broke. And what was happening was it was wobbling around in there, and that actually ate out the number 4 main. That's all it done. Didn't even hardly tear up the line bore. I mean, it just ate it out. And when it spun, it cut all off to number 6 rod. So that's where the knock come in. And we caught all this in good time. We were fortunate about that. So then, now we're into the winter time. Parts are hard to come by, so we call around, we can't find the crank, and then we found a company that's not, I ain't gonna say they're like brand new, they're not maybe as old as some of the companies, but they have a very, 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 very good crankshaft, and it's a Monar. So we called them, they had 2 in stock. I should have bought both, I just bought one, and I bought their crank. I really like the crank, it's a super light crank. It actually took 2 more pounds off our rotating assembly than the crank we had, which, and that's another argument for another day. I don't even know. That helps with acceleration, but it don't make no more horsepower hardly. So, that being said, we get the engine put back together this year. So, before the season starts, and this, I'm going to get criticized for saying this. I think the SCG starts the season a little bit too early. And that's not me. I hope this is America where we can say stuff and not, well, you can't today. Today, if you say something, everybody's wanting to cancel you out and prosecute. I mean, just really hammer on you. Here's the deal. I'm not meaning this in a negative way, and I've actually told one of the managers, or should I say the board members, or one of the people that run the place, that you're starting the season too early. And this is my opinion. Hard to start a season in March when you're not given enough time to get parts. And that's the deal, man. I get it, and they're trying to make it, and they're trying to appease everybody because everybody wants so many weeks between their races. And I get it, and it's a juggling act. But it's hard. You can't get your parts in time. It's not enough time because, this ain't NHRA. It ain't pro. We're not getting paid. We don't have $1 million worth of budget to make parts and get ahead. So it was just hard that we couldn't make the first race, no matter what we did. So we was trying to get ready, and we just couldn't get done in time. Well, we went to the dyno. And the engine, right off the dyno, right first pull, started smoking like a diesel. I don't understand. Number 6 is pouring oil. And we can't figure out why. And it still made some amazing horsepower. Number 6 is pouring oil. It's pre-detonating. It ain't hardly making, the power is down. It's just screwed. 3 pulls in, me and Bob just go, this is a waste of time. We got to go figure out. I'm thinking, I overlapped the ring wrong. I got the oil overlapped, or I've got a ring on upside down. I'm thinking, well, I screwed up. I did something wrong. So we get it back. So me and Tim Hall, Scalded Dog, the guys winning in C-Gas right now, badass guy, lives about 30 minutes below me. Builds his engines in-house, builds his transmission. He's like me. We do everything in-house. And the guy is just, he's got it. I mean, he is so tuned in on what his car needs and how his car, he'll be a threat all year this year. He's already run like 3 in a row, I think, and he will be a threat. They'll be hard to beat unless he breaks. All right, because he's just on top of it like that. Well, me and him's here. This is like the Monday night after Saturday. We tore the heads off, and we're going, and we're sitting here going, and we pull it out, and we go, well, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we're looking, and no rings are. We just couldn't put our finger on why is this thing pumping oil. I mean, there's oil sitting on top of the piston. And I'm thinking, man, we got a crack in the head. What's going on? I'm thinking, well, why would we have a crack in the head? Well, long story short, because this could go forever, when this piston number 6 hit the head, when the crank broke and it started wobbling in there, the piston tagged the head, which ain't that big a deal because we're thousandths of clearance in there, so it don't take much for it to smack it flat. And it didn't really hurt nothing because it ain't like we ain't talking about just a barely bump. And if you really and truly, if you get them right, they ought to be knocking the carbon off of them anyway. So I didn't think no more about it. So long story short, I finally am at my wit's end. Tim's sitting here. We've been here for an hour and a half trying to figure out why is this thing pumping oil. We can't do it. So I call a friend of mine, Bob McAllister, which is the head guy at Clemens Racing in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Bob McAllister is not he's probably the best head guy in the Southeast, and he's one of the best head guys in the country. And listen, you probably couldn't count, they probably ain't but that many good head guys in the country, like the best head guys that can go in there and look at a head, do a little work, and get you more power. It's him. He's an awesome guy, and he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. But anyway, I call him up, and I said, Bobby, help me and Tim out here. We can't figure this out. It's pumping, it's blowing oil like crazy. We can't figure out why, what's the deal? And I said, it is the piston that got hit. And when I said that, he said, I know what the problem is. He said, your skirt's collapsed. I said, what do you mean the skirt's collapsed? He said, when that thing goes up, he said, and it hit the cylinder because the cranks in there are wobbling around, the piston comes up and smacks, and then what it does is this right here, it kicks the piston, boom, like that, and it collapses the skirt. Well, I never checked none of this. He said, you won't be able to see it, but if you put mics on it, this could be collapsed by as much as 3 or 4 thousandths. And if it is, the oil comes right by. Well, guess what? That's what we're on. We put the mics on it. You can see a bad spot here, there. Now that you kind of look at it, it come up, it smacked. There you go. So now that's our problem. We have got a piston that the skirt had collapsed on. So now that's like 2 weeks before the next race, which I believe was Shadyside, which we probably could have made. I made my mind up I was going to put the backup engine in. All right, because basically we just take the heads and the intake off of this engine. It bolts right back onto this engine. Push rods are ready. Everything's ready to go. I decided not to do that. I've been watching how the big blocks have been performing. I watched last year. I'm like a hawk. I watch everything that's going on, and I've seen the consistency of the big block. And I knew that. I knew that was coming because of the torque they make. Them guys make so much torque that they can even make decent numbers on a bad track. So, because they have so much torque to make up for it. Where the problem with the small blocks is they have to have, everybody thinks it's horsepower, and it really ain't. To me, it's torque. I've got record books I'll show you that when we went from an 18-degree engine to a 23-degree engine and we lost torque, the car slowed down. We made more horsepower, but we lost torque, the car slowed down. So in my mind, I've got a proof of that in writing, that torque, when we started getting torque back with these two engines, our car started speeding back up. Because this engine, this one makes 75 more horsepower than it did in 2017. This engine makes 110 to 15 horsepower more than this engine did in 2017. And we're not that much faster, but the torque numbers are all about the same. So everybody says, you're giving away secrets. I'm not really giving away secrets. It's just the torque is the key. So I have a big block. So I said, well, let's just go ahead and put a big block in. So I called SEG and I asked them, I said, are y'all going to change the rules or anything? Or are y'all going to make the big blocks weigh right? Weigh 6 pounds. I said, I'm just curious. I don't want to go through all the trouble, put all this big block in, build headers, and do all that, and then they changed the rules. Well, they told me they didn't feel it, they wasn't going to, or didn't seem that they was going to, didn't foresee that no time soon. I said, okay. So I get the big block, it's sitting over out there, and I said, well, let's stick a big block in there until we get this ready. I really don't want to go big block, but I know to be really competitive right now, I think the big block's where it's at. You're either going to have to be big cubic inch small block, hoping that you can make torque, or you're going to have a big block. I don't think you're going to be able to do it another way. In A-gas. Now, I'm not talking about the other classes. I don't care about them. I'm talking about A-gas. Because I see the consistency of the big blocks. They're smooth. They're smooth. And don't get me wrong, the people that's winning in A-gas in the big block, dude, they are they are really putting their time in to get that car. That car is working perfect. I've watched the videos. I've watched it race in person. It is working perfect. They have got that car tuned to perfection, which makes a big difference also. But I looked at everything that's getting to the late rounds at the SEG right now is the big blocks. So that just tells me I think I'm right. Torque is where we need to be, and we need to be figuring out how to even get more torque out of this engine. And that's nothing negative against nobody. That's just the facts. That's common sense. If I watch it, I can see what's going on. If you look at qualifying sheets, is all you got to do. If you take all the qualifying sheets and you look and who's qualified the most number one qualifier, in the last 2 years, and you look, the big blocks have just dominated. You got a small block every now and then. And then here's the problem with small blocks. A small block will maybe could run as fast as, or get within a few hundredths or a half a tenth or a tenth of a big block. The problem is they'll do it every now and then. It's just like they hit one home run out, but they can't back it up. So they can't go back to the plate and knock another home run out and another home run out. So it's like, yeah, conditions was perfect right then. Nobody has been able to go just back it up completely. Back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. The big blocks going out there and they're breaking records and they're backing it up. And then they're staying within just a few hundredths of each other. They're just that consistent. Where I think it's the torque and the setup. Them cars don't have to turn as hard as the small blocks, so the clutches like them better. They don't have to turn them 10,000 RPM. So the clutch likes that better. These clutches are bad and they're badass and they're cool, but they don't like operating at 10,000 RPM. They don't last as long operating continuously at 10,000 RPM. But that's just where I'm at with that. Now, our pistons ship Monday. Day after tomorrow from Diamond. It took 8 weeks to get them. We basically putting in a whole new set of pistons. We're keeping these as spares instead of just ordering one. Well, the way the parts are, it just takes that long now. So we're putting in a new set of pistons into this engine. We're putting this engine back together to race some this year. I'm not going to pull the backup out. It just don't make sense to take a chance in damaging that thing. Then I got 2 busted engines. So, and then the big block, going back to the big block, I started putting in, I thought, man, I got to build all these headers. It's just so much work. And I just be honest with you, I rethought it. So I'm not doing it. Just too much work. I'm just not going. And then at the end of the day, they may end up putting the weight back on the big blocks. And then I got to pull back and go back to my small block. And that's just, I don't have the budget just to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I got to make, either I'll stick one course, put all my efforts into that, and then all my resources. Because this year money, it's been okay. We're making good money, but I just can't not justify putting a lot of money in the race budget. There's just not enough there for the hobby. I guess when I first started racing at the SEG, I'd spend every dime I could. I'd break a transmission a race, so I'd spend every dime I could from race to race to race because I was chasing something. I love racing. And once I get into it, I'm 150% in. Ask anybody around me. But the older I guess I've got, or the more money conscious I got, I just can't justify it. It's just a hobby. I ain't wanting to you're not ever going to make money racing tonight. I don't want to and don't plan to. But I can control whether it costs me $30,000 a year to go do a hobby or it costs me $10,000 a year. And I've got to stick down to where it only costs me the least amount of money to go do the hobby. And it just ain't there right now. But we're going to race some races. It's going to be toward the end of the year. The real close ones, because of traveling costs and all that, it's almost going to have to be day trips there, no spending the night. We are going to race, I think, Chopper's Ball, which is just like the Still in Motion show. We're going to do one of them, and I don't know which ones at the end of the year we're going to do at the SEG. We're going to get the engine together, go test it, go dyno it, get it dialed in, then put it in the car, and then we're going to go test the car. And we're not bringing the car back to the track unless I'm 100%, but I 100% believe it's at its full capacity, which it has not been. Even in 17, it wasn't. 16, it was at where that setup's capacity was, and that car could have went faster then. But it ain't been that consistent since then. And so right now it runs in the 40s, using the clutch, hitting the stop, unloading the car. But there's more. There's a lot more there. So we're going to work on that. And when the car's at the level I think it needs to be, and the people around me think it needs to be, we had a discussion about this the other day, then we'll come back and race. I like racing. I love racing. And people give me a lot of shit for this. I go to race. I like the people. I love hanging out. But I cannot go knowing that I'm going to lose. If I know I'm going to lose, and the only option I got to win is hoping that somebody else has bad luck or a bad day, I'm not doing that. And I'm I'm not knocking on nobody. It's just not the way I'm built. I want to come knowing that I've at least got a good chance to put that green car in the winner's circle. And I feel like once we get all this back together and we get that car to where I feel like it, we'll go race. Because then it's, it's, the old saying is, the juice is worth the squeeze. So that's what's happened to the Boogie Man. We're not out. We're just down right now. In fact, the Boogie Man's in storage. I got it out of shop because we got so much fabrication going on. Hopefully in the next month, our engine will be back together. Just because we're going to do it in our spare time, and we'll be back on the dyno. And we'll get it tweaked out, and then we'll get it in the car, and then maybe a month or two of testing or a month or so of testing, get the car dialed in to where we feel like we're happy with it and we feel like we're getting every bit out of it that's there, and then we'll go race. So hope you enjoyed this. I wish everybody at the SEG that races luck, safety, big thing. Be careful, don't get hurt, have fun. I wish everybody else at the Southern Outlaws have fun. All the nostalgia racing places in the South, everybody be fun, be safe, have fun. And nostalgia racing all together. I mean, everybody be safe, have fun. Chris Dunn, aka the Boogie Man.